Welcome to the Talk Sox podcast. I'm Alex, and I'm here with Maddie. What's going on?
Doing well. How are you?
Surviving the heat, but nothing too crazy. I think that's the whole country at this point, except for Montana. I saw where Montana got 8 inches of snow yesterday,
Whoa,
and it's June.
It's
So,
crazy.
yeah. But everywhere else in the country is boiling. So
Stay hydrated.
yes. It's crazy out there. We have a series to touch on, I guess, a couple of series. The last time we recorded was during the first game of the Mariners series where Roman Anthony hit his first major league home run. The Red Sox took that series and then turned around and dropped the series to the San Francisco Giants. I feel like there's a lot to talk about out of the series. The hot button issue is, of course, Rafael Devers and the home run on Saturday against Brian Bayo, which we talked about in our Slack channel. We all kind of knew that Bayo would be the one to groove that fastball right there for him. Just kind of typical Bayo. He has to give up a homer a game, so why not Rafael Devers?
Bayo has actually looked solid in his last couple of starts. I think he's turning a corner.
Going back 4 starts, I would say that he is our number 2 starter. He's gone 6 innings in the last 4, I think. 7 once. I don't know what his ERA is in these last 4 off the top of my head, but I feel like that home run and then in New York, that first series against the Yankees, I think he gave up a couple of runs, but I think that's it in that stretch. If it's not more than another run or two. I'll take that out of Brian Bayo every single time. It looks like they've added the cutter back into his rotation, his pitch mix, which he hasn't really thrown since 23, which I think is a smart play. I think that maybe Andrew Bailey has decided to kind of take the training wheels off of all of the rotation and kind of let them maybe start calling their own pitches. And I know we talked about that a few episodes ago. I wondered, who was calling the pitches and how that impacted, but I think that we're starting to see a rotation that can be trusted. And I say that with Walker Buehler currently towing the rubber in Anaheim tonight. And so maybe not tonight, but I think we've turned the corner with our rotation for the most part. And I think that Brian Bayo is a solid number 2 for now. I would like to see them add a number 2, but we'll talk trade deadline later. But what do you think? Do you think he's turned that corner?
Yeah. I think that Yankees outing a couple weeks ago really helped, with his confidence. And
the one at Fenway where he went 7.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that
he
was huge.
Lights out.
That was huge.
And it was probably
that was a
his
Sunday
best
game,
start.
A day game too, which he typically does not do well in day games. I agree. I think it was his best start all season, and I wrote about that right after all that happened because we couldn't really talk about Bayo with the other news that happened just after that Yankees game on Father's Day.
Yeah, it was arguably his best start, the best start of his career. So that's really good momentum for him to build on. And after the Netflix documentary, I became a bigger Brian Bayo fan, and I would love to see the Red Sox develop a homegrown pitcher.
Yeah, absolutely. When we talked about the Netflix doc kind of right when it came out with Bayo, and I thought that it really kind of shined a light on just everything that went wrong for him last season. And I think, and I haven't watched the doc. I've got some friends who have watched it 2 or 3 times at this point. I haven't done that. I've just watched it the one time. But the thing that has stood out to me and something that I vividly remember is that conversation down in left field where with him and Alex Cora, where Cora was finally just like, hey, it's really bothering you that your family's not here. And you see Bayo, and the camera was a good distance away, but you see Bayo get really worked up about it and walk away from Cora to kind of collect himself. And that's something that, we don't think about really at all when it comes to these players, especially the players that are not from this country. I thought that the doc did a really good job of showing like Tyler O'Neill's family setup where he has an infant and they are on the West Coast. Him and his wife and their baby are on the West Coast and together, and they're traveling to try to spend as much time with him. Well, Brian Bayo didn't get that opportunity. His infant daughter was granted a visa, but his wife was not last season. And so he was here, really, him and his manager, and that was about it. And it really had an impact on him. And luckily, his wife and daughter are here in the States for this season. And I think that you can see that. You see a much calmer presence on the mound. He's not having these emotional outbursts, except when he gets into it with an ump as he's walking away. But I really do. I think that Bale's turned that corner, and I really hope that he keeps building on this, because if he does, obviously Garrett Crochet is the ace of the rotation and will be for the next 7 years. But Brian Bayo as your number 2, if this continues, is a very good problem to have.
Yeah, I think Bayo and Crochet are a good foundation to build around for the rotation. Because after that, it gets a little uncertain with players. I mean, we'll talk about Houck and Crawford later on.
Yeah, technically, I should have added Hunter Dobbins to this list. If you're watching, we've got kind of a rundown over on the side here, and we really don't know a ton about Hunter Dobbins' injury. We just know that it's an elbow, correct?
Yeah,
It's either an elbow or forearm tightness, one of the two, which neither are things that you want to hear when it comes to pitchers.
Did you say on the last podcast that he looked off and there was something wrong with his mechanics when he was throwing, like his leg?
I didn't notice it. I noticed this last start right before he went on the IL that his velocity was down. Mechanics wise, I'm trying to remember who that was, but it wasn't Dobbins. It may have been, no, it wasn't Buehler. I don't remember who it was. But yes, I do remember talking about that. But the only thing that really tipped me off that something was wrong with Dobbins was this last start when his velo was down 3 or 4 ticks. And he didn't really have any command that game. He walked 5, which is short sample size, but it's very uncharacteristic of him so far this season. So I think that we all kind of had an idea that maybe something was going on and was hoping it was maybe just arm fatigue, but it does look like he's dealing with a more serious problem without a timeline, last I heard.
Yeah, 15-day IL, so we'll see.
Okay.
He's so young to be dealing with.
Yeah, I figure we won't see him before the All-Star break at this point.
That's coming up.
Yeah.
It's almost July. Crazy to think about.
Yeah, it kind of felt like the season wasn't dragging right there at the start, but it never felt like it truly got going. And now it's like, okay, I think tomorrow is the halfway point for the team. They play their 81st game either tomorrow or Wednesday, I think. And yeah, we're halfway there, and we're not in the position that we want to be in, but we kind of see where the team could be going depending on, how some things fall and who comes back. But one thing that has been a constant really since the beginning of the season has been just absolutely awful defense.
Where do we start?
I've singled out David Hamilton solely because David Hamilton was pitched as a defensive wizard. And last year, he played a very passable second base. I think that I could have stuck my 5-year-old out there at second base in San Francisco, and he would have made those plays that Hamilton botched over the weekend. The way I see it, if David Hamilton is not a capable defender and is making what I would call little league errors, he has no place on this team. He's a great pinch runner. I would rather keep Christian Campbell, who's not on here, but Christian Campbell has been sent down to AAA for those of you who may not be aware. I would have rather kept Christian Campbell because Campbell either would have made those exact same errors, and you expect that from him, or he would have made the play.
Yeah, just Hamilton, he's a lot older. I mean, he's 27
Yeah.
and yeah, he should not be starting for the Red Sox if they're a serious team.
No, and Alex Bregman, we'll get more into the weeds on him here in a little bit, but he is coming back soon. And so I think the plan is for Marcelo Meyer to shift over to second base, which would put Hamilton back on the bench. I think that Marcelo should go to short and Story should go to second, but I don't think that's going to happen this season. I think that's a next year thing. And so, I think that they're just kind of biding their time until the beginning of July, which is, in a week, week and a half. And I think kind of Cora's thought is if we can continue to play 500 ball, we'll be in it come July because the AL is so weak.
The Yankees are losing right now. What are they in their last 10 games?
They've only won 2. Are they 2-8? I think maybe 3-7.
It says they're 2023. What the heck? Okay. 3-7 in their last 10.
3-7. Okay.
And last I checked, they were losing to the Reds. So, I mean, if they keep falling,
that's sad for them.
Boo-hoo.
I will say, not that anybody's listening to this live because it's not being live streamed. The Red Sox are currently up 3-0 in the top of the first.
Huh.
Let's see what happened because I haven't gotten any notifications.
Yeah, me neither.
Sedan singles, Story scores.
Okay.
Willier singles, Toro scores, Roman scores.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Story got to third on a throwing error. It's great to see other teams making those errors. Appreciate it always. But so David Hamilton, if the Red Sox are a serious team, does not need to be starting at second base past July, let's say 7th. That's the date that I've heard that has been circled for Alex Bregman to return. And that is from Jared Carabas, who is quite close with Bregman. So it was, in fact, on the most recent episode of the Section 10 podcast, Tyler Milliken floated that he had heard the 10th, and Carabas said, well, why not the 7th? And so I think that is the date that they are targeting for Alex Bregman's return.
It can't come any sooner.
Yeah.
I pulled up David Hamilton's fielding stats. So last year he played 39 games at second. He only committed 3 errors. This year, at 37 games, he's at 4.
He committed 2 of them in the Giants series, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
How many games, if you have it quickly available, Maddie, how many errors does Christian Campbell have on the season?
Fielding splits.
I know it's more than 4.
He is at 4 too.
Okay, so he's at 4
not 4,
as well.
7.
Those are 7. Okay.
Years. 7.
Okay. So obviously Hamilton has less errors on the season. I feel that for the most part, Campbell's errors have been less costly. They don't seem to come in big moments, or they don't seem to come as a way to spark a rally for the other team. And I'm not advocating for Christian Campbell to be up with Marcelo Meyer likely moving to second here in the next couple of weeks. He's not on the rundown, but I think that Campbell going to AAA to get work at first base is huge. And I think that tells us what is probably going to happen with Tristan Casas, who claims, he was at the Woo Sox game over the weekend with Craig Breslow, which I thought was interesting.
Lurking in the background of that photo.
Yeah. Like very, very like, I wonder what I could trade him for.
No.
But not much, Craig. But I think that kind of tells us everything that we need to know about Tristan Casas' likely future with the team. And we've talked about this kind of at length on this podcast because Casas has, when Adam is here, he has 3 fans that are the co-host of this podcast. But and none of us want to see him have the injuries or the season that he was having before the injuries. But I think that his welcome has been worn in Boston, and I don't think that he ever suits up for the Boston Red Sox again. And I think that Christian Campbell is likely our first baseman of the future. I don't hate that.
I don't hate it either. I wonder if the team wants to push him to a super utility role.
That contract plays well for a super utility role. So like in the vein of like Brock Holt, but
better,
a little more
that.
Do you think that Christian Campbell will ever hit for the cycle in the postseason?
Well, they first have to make it to the postseason with Campbell on the roster.
Point. That's a very good point.
You never know.
I could see that. There is rumors. I forgot who it was on MLB Network today. Came out and said that the Red Sox he confirmed that they are still planning to be buyers at the trade deadline. And we're not going to go into it right now, but he specifically said starting pitching and first base. So I think that shows that they don't believe maybe wholeheartedly in the Romy Toro platoon at first. Although I think that you could ride that platoon pretty much to the postseason. I don't feel bad going into October baseball with Romy Gonzalez and Abraham Toro at first. That doesn't bother me. I don't think that Toro's hot streak is sustainable because he doesn't walk enough or at all. But I mean, Romy has come through clutch. I'm going to wave away that error at second that he had yesterday.
Why was he playing second in the first place?
That's the other thing. He played like 6 games there last year. He has kind of made his mark on this team as a corner infielder. And so I appreciate him being willing to step up and like, hey, AC, if you need me to play second, I'll play second. If for nothing else, just to get David Hamilton off of second. But keep him at first and third. There's really no reason to have him out there. I don't blame him for that error. It sucks, but it is what it is. You know, I don't think we'll see him at second probably ever again this year unless things have gone horribly, horribly wrong.
Yeah, at the time Romy made that error, the game was already lost.
Yeah. So I guess we need to talk about Jarren Duran and his defense.
Oof. He leads left fielders in errors as of now.
Once again, I would call them little league errors. He was realistically a contender for the Gold Glove in center field last year. And he is a below average left fielder.
That's putting it nicely. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've long banged this drum to trade Duran. They should have done it during the offseason. I've got a piece. The Athletic has him as the number 1 trade target in all of baseball right now. I'm working on a piece about that. It seems like the tide has turned for Jarren Duran and the Boston Red Sox. I don't want to reference Section 10 too much on this episode. But once again, if you're a fan and you've listened to the most recent episode, Coley, who is my favorite one out of that whole crew. So they have a thing called the Scoop Shop, and it's the 4-host, the producer of Section 10, and it's got like Lou Merlone, the Wills. So it's got some people who are plugged in. And they said that Fleming is the best beat reporter that Boston has, because before every game he is out on the field, he's talking to people, and he has been saying since the start of the season they might trade Devers. Like that's things that I'm hearing, and they all said that they thought it was complete crap. Like no way, no how. Well, lo and behold, they traded Devers. So one thing that kind of Coley and I have been on the same train with is trading Duran. He said that Fleming was like, "Hey, they're not doing that. Absolutely not. Nothing I'm hearing." That has apparently changed in the last week. To when it got brought up again, he was like, "Yeah, there's some teeth to this." So I think that the team is seriously considering getting rid of Jaron Duran. I think they're about 6 months too late, but he does still have value. I think that teams will look at it as especially teams that aren't in giant markets like Boston. I think that teams will look at it as okay, you get him out of the Boston market, you give him a reset, and I think I can fix him, or get him at least to, a league average fielder that will steal 30 bases on the season. Um, I wonder if we don't make it to the deadline before he's traded. I could see him being an early July trade.
I mean, if you logged on to Twitter at all today, the
They've turned
fan
on him
base,
completely.
yeah, they did a full 180 on him
Yeah,
overnight, it seems
yeah.
like. And I mean, I like him, but his
Hmm.
performance just hasn't been good this year. And I mean, I don't know how you can go from Gold Glove caliber defense in center field to being the worst left fielder
How do you not
less
call
than a
off
year
Nate
later.
Eaton, who is starting his first game at third base? How do you not call him off on that play? Like that's baseball 101. That is little league stuff. As a 7-year-old in little league, you are calling people off on foul balls. I don't understand it. I don't get, there's long been the jokes that Duran is a meathead and he's not overly intelligent. And I don't necessarily buy that. I think he is a meathead. He can kind of gives that vibe off. But I think that when it comes to baseball, I think he is a smart person. I don't care about his life off the field. Like, he can be whatever there. But you have to understand that when you're playing with a rookie who's not Marcelo Meyer, he's not like Nate Eaton isn't listening for you to run up behind him. He's not paying attention to how quickly you're approaching him from the back. He's just trying to field the ball. And here you are running into him because you're not communicating. You have to communicate. People want to point to him as a team leader. Team leaders don't get suspended for using gay slurs. Team leaders don't
Fight fans
fight
after they,
fans.
yeah,
They don't give up on balls that are hit. And I know this was 2 years ago, but they don't give up on balls that are hit over their head and allow inside the park home runs.
and have Alex Verdugo back you up then on
Yeah,
that play.
like it.
Yeah.
Team leaders don't commit little league errors consistently. I think that he is liked in the clubhouse, but I think the clubhouse is fairly split on him. Um, at one point, he had the trust of Alex Cora. I think that it's very telling that against left-handed pitchers, Jared Duran now hits sixth. And I
Mhm.
think that earlier in the season, when I really started heavily on the we need to trade Duran thing, I think that Alex Cora would have pushed back on it. I don't think Cora would push back on it nearly as hard now, because trading Duran opens left field up for Roman, and that is 100% where he needs to be playing.
Yeah, he shouldn't be playing in right field at Fenway.
No, no, it's going to be if what we saw in San Francisco. And I don't super knock him for it. Like, yeah, he shouldn't have lobbed that ball in. He looks kind of slow footed, but let him learn the monster. At Worcester, it's a little different because the monster's in right field. So
Mhm.
he already knows how to play balls off of a tall wall. Go ahead and move him to left. Let Duran DH, which I think is kind of what Cora is trying to do, because Duran has DH'd a couple of times now. But I think that that's Cora kind of signaling to him, like, hey, you're the odd man out in this. And I let Roman play left, trade Duran, because I think you can get a decent package for him still, and let Roman play left because Roman needs to be in the field every day.
Hold up. Going back to what you said, and this also ties to that June Lee article that came out
Uh-huh.
after the Devers trade. You think Cora sets the lineup up and not Breslow?
I think that Cora. I think when it comes to final say on the lineup, that Cora gets the yes or no. I think that the lineup likely comes from Breslow, and as probably a way to try to mend fences, because they both seem to be doing that right now. I think that it's like, hey, this is kind of what I want to see today. Do you agree? I think that if Cora believed that Duran should still be a leadoff hitter, Cora would be like, no, JD's hitting first. And Breslow would be like, yeah, okay. But I do think that Cora probably has final say over the lineup. Do I think he comes up with it day to day? No. But I don't think that it gets sent out without his approval.
Okay.
At least that's what I hope. I don't know if Cora would have signed an extension if he doesn't have say over what's going on the field to some extent.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust Breslow's AI bot to
put
together a lineup.
No 5 layers of it. That is just absolutely wild to me. And I think it's so funny that they've all come out and are like, this isn't what happened. Like, the guy owned it. Like, he was like, yeah. I never talked to a person in 5 rounds of interviews.
Yeah, just I don't know what to say about the organization, but I feel better with Cora locked up.
Yeah. I do think that I don't think they're going to fire Craig Breslow this year, even if they don't make the postseason. I think that that reflects more poorly on the front office, like on the ownership, than it does Breslow. Because while Breslow will always have the Devers trade hanging over his head, much like Heim always has the Mookie trade hanging over his head, it's all about how Breslow approaches life now after the Devers trade that will define what his tenure in Boston is. Heim traded Mookie, 21 was awesome, and then everything else sucked. He restocked the farm system, which is great. Once the big 3 graduate, the farm system is going to be very thin. That does concern me, especially if guys like the Password are traded, which I think he should be. I think he will be. But we get very thin again. And I do think that's why the Harrison deal is the Harrison trade to bring him in is such a big deal, because if they've added a cutter and a sinker or a splitter to his pitch mix already. He makes his Woo Sox debut on Thursday. So if you have MLB TV, be sure or if you're local to Boston, be sure to check that out. I will be watching, very interested to see kind of what happens with him. If they think that he does have the ceiling of a 2 and he starts to show that already, then I do think that maybe a Peyton Tolley can be traded. And I think that you would have a lot of people who would be interested in that. But I do worry that the farm system post-trade deadline is going to be very, very thin. But I do think that there are some major leaguers that need to be worried about their position on the team, starting with one Walker Buehler, who
just
currently has given up 5 runs.
5 runs.
Yeah, it's 3-5 now.
Injury delay.
Yeah, I just saw that too.
Oh, God.
Maybe his arm fell off.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
Let's hop over to the tweet machine and see who's injured. Cal Raleigh has homered again.
Good for him.
Yeah. I'm so stoked for him. That has been so much fun to watch.
Yeah, he's a great dude.
Milliken tweeted, Walker Buehler is lost beyond belief. This is painful. And Lou Merlone said, you got to pull him. No. but I can't find what's going on. I know this is so interesting for those of you, who are listening. But while we kind of figure out what is going on, even including now this start, Walker Buehler has been absolute garbage, really since returning from injury. You were hoping that first start back, we would see something that we liked. He instead got tossed in 3 1/3 innings. Um, so I don't really know. You got to get rid of him, right? A team will
Yeah.
trade for him.
Well, he was also listed in that Athletic article about, highly regarded trade targets for playoff teams.
I don't know
It's
how he's highly
interesting.
regarded for anything.
Because, I mean, as Red Sox fans, we know how terrible he's been. And Dodgers fans probably can say the same thing about his performance last year, too.
Yes, I have a great buddy who does listen, so appreciate that, Deej, who is a Dodgers fan. And he when Walker Buehler was brought on to Boston, he was like, "Man, you guys are getting a steal. It's just going to be so awesome." And I was excited. I wrote about how excited I was. And now I wish Walker Buehler would jump off a bridge.
Oh.
Not really, but I want him traded. And I think that you will have a team that will trade for him because of his postseason track record. But man, he's offering nothing.
Yeah, he was one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year, and this year he's probably up there too. I don't have the specific stats.
We've made a habit of signing the worst pitchers the season after they are the worst pitcher.
Well,
Lou Merlone just tweeted, "Wow."
Connor Wong's upgrade.
Jesus Christ.
To be fair, I mean, speaking of pitchers who were really bad, Lucas Giolito has looked good in his last couple of starts.
Yeah, I've been very impressed with Lucas Giolito. I think that he has probably turned the injury corner. His velocity yesterday was down about 2 ticks from where it had been, and you don't love to see that, but if he's maybe taking a start kind of easy, but he's still pitching well, you don't complain about that. So I was pulling Walker Buehler's numbers since May 1st. He has pitched his way to an 8.17 ERA, and this does not include tonight. That'll be much higher. He has a negative 0.4 WAR. His strikeouts per 9 are down to 8.53. His BABIP is a 3.64. His FIP is a 6.78. It's laughable.
And the thing is, when he unravels, he lets it show on the mound, which doesn't help the team at all.
No, and it makes it so easy to just walk up and be like, "Cool, I'm going to just tee off on you." Apparently he hit a guy with the bases loaded and then walked the next batter.
That's the most embarrassing bad sequence for a pitcher.
My timeline is filled with, let's just give Tanner Houck another shot.
I would take Cutter Crawford over Walker Buehler, but he doesn't look like he'll return anytime soon.
No, he's been shut down again. And so I don't know if we'll see Cutter Crawford at all this year. Now it's a wrist injury. Okay, so apparently, no, excuse me. He hit a guy. Walker Buehler hit a guy on a 1-2 count. Whoever it was is hitting 167 this year.
Of
That
course.
loaded the bases. Then he walked the next guy, and then he walked the guy after that, and then he hit the guy, who I believe is Zach Neto, who hit a leadoff home run.
Second at bat of the
Yeah.
God.
And then here's this tweet that says he doesn't have 7 different pitches. It's no pitches with 7 different grips. Oh my gosh. I couldn't find anything about the injury timeout. So I assume it's one of the multiple players who were hit by pitches.
Well, I don't want to speak anything into existence. Mike Trout is playing, but I hit by pitch. Wade Jr. and Neto. Huh. Okay.
Okay. Well, Walker Buehler sucks. And I think that's just kind of it. Like I said, his ERA since May 1st is awful. Not counting today, which I assume he's out of the game at this point. I don't see him coming out for the second. He's thrown 25 and a third innings since May 1st. Make that 26 and a third. His home run fly ball rate since May 1st is 24.1%.
Oh my God.
No. Oh my gosh. I
could find a little leaguer playing at a local field and he would pitch better than Walker Buehler.
That's a common thread tonight, Maddie. So you've got, okay, so we'll just go ahead and talk about, we've talked about Cutter. You've got Tanner Houck, who's made one rehab start.
Didn't go that well.
And it didn't go well. Do you have the numbers on it quickly? If not, I can pull
it up. June 18th, was just 5 days ago. He pitched 1 inning at a 9 ERA, 0% strikeout rate, 16.7% batted ball rate, a negative 16.7 strikeout to batted ball rate, 6.3% whiff, a 0% barrel rate. Okay, something decent there. And a 109 pro stuff plus. So, and he only recorded 1 whiff on a sweeper, fastball 94 to 96 miles per hour, splitter 88 to 90 miles per hour, sweeper 83 to 85 miles per hour. Notably, he apparently hasn't thrown a cutter since 2023, and he's trying to work that back into his mix.
That's interesting. I don't remember the cutter from 2 years ago.
Me neither.
But I mean, if it helps, it helps. Realistically, he's a sinker sweeper pitcher, and if one of those pitches is off, then he's going to get knocked around. I like Tanner Houck a lot. And I want to see him succeed. I wonder if the way to succeed fully for him is a move to the bullpen, where he's not expected to go 5-6 innings, where he could go 1, 2, maybe 3 innings, and the stuff plays up out of the bullpen. Was it 21 or 22 where he ended up closing quite a few games? And we've talked about this before. I at the time said that he should be the closer of the Boston Red Sox. I think that he's got the stuff for it. I don't think that he currently has the stuff for it, but I think that he could get back to that. It's tough to be a closer without a true fastball, without a four-seamer or a two-seamer, but it exists. There are pitchers who have done it and will continue to do it. I don't hate the idea of him going to the bullpen. As players get healthy, as Kyle Harrison gets closer to the July 4th magical date that he can be called up without somehow accruing a year of service. You have Richard Fitz is already with the team thanks to the Dobbins injury. If the Dobbins injury is not severe, Dobbins will be back at some point around the trade deadline, probably. It's a crowded starters mix in Boston all of a sudden come mid to end July. And something's got to give if you're not trading from those. I don't know of really anybody who would want to trade for Tanner Houck in the way that he currently is. But if you're not bringing in bullpen reinforcements, I think that maybe him and Fitz or Dobbins to the bullpen when Dobbins is healthy isn't a bad idea. And it kind of protects the arm. Yeah.
Looking at his splits, he has a 2.6 ERA as a reliever in 53.2 innings.
Okay.
Versus his ERA as a starter, which is 4.13. So he has looked good in the bullpen. And considering how taxed the bullpen is, I think they're in the top 5 for innings pitched. Granted, they played the most games in baseball.
Second since so I just wrote about this for the Noah Song piece that went up today. Because I think that Noah Song has a real shot to make the bullpen as soon as July. They have kind of sped him through. He's at Double-A right now. I anticipate him being called up to Worcester by the end of the month, and probably I think he could be with the big league club by the end of July. Which I would love to see. I've been a big fan of Noah Song ever since he was pitching for the Naval Academy. He was just electric to watch. But I think they're only behind the Brewers in innings pitched.
That's pleasant company to be a part
of. Now, they do have one of the top 3 or possibly 2 bullpen ERAs as well. But, I mean, Weissert looks exhausted. Brendan Bernardino got effectively a week off at one point and still looks tired. So I think that you're going to have to start relying on Whitlock more, which is fine. Whitlock has looked really good. But does he continue to look really good when you have to continually rely on him? There's no timetable for Justin Slayton. He hasn't even started throwing yet. Liam Hendricks is playing catch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's a terrifying prospect. How was he not the DFA? over Zach Penrod? How was Liam Hendricks not the DFA? I don't get that.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking of it, out of everybody to DFA in the bullpen, it was Penrod over
Zach Kelly.
Hendricks. Zach Kelly too. Why is he still on the roster at this point?
And now Penrod's going to the Dodgers, and he's going to be like World Series MVP out of the pen.
They're gonna pump him with some super soldier serum, and he's gonna pitch throw the final pitch in the World Series.
Yeah, Michael Jordan's secret stuff from Space Jam, just loaded up on Zach Penrod. But yeah, while we are going to have a good problem once players start returning, outside of obviously Garrett Crochet, Brian Bayo is on shaky ground but more stable. Giolito's on shaky ground but more stable. And Chapman, Whitlock, there's really not anybody else that I am confident when they come into a game that they're not going to at least put themselves in a jam that they're going to have to pitch themselves out of.
Especially when Weissert is a closer, he just seems off I mean, if he's pitching in the
Yeah.
8th, he usually gets through the inning pretty quickly, but
Mhm.
he just drags things on when he's closing a game.
When he, I think it was that first game in Seattle where he came in and walked the first two batters on 8 straight pitches. I
Yeah.
I was laying in bed and my wife was half awake, and I was like, "Something's wrong." Like he's either exhausted or his arm is about to fall off. Um, and I think I do. I think he's exhausted, and we're seeing that every time he comes out. He pitches himself into jams, and so far, he has pitched himself back out of them. But your luck is going to run out sooner rather than later. Somebody who is doing quite well, even though the numbers don't really show it up to this point, is Roman Anthony. Um, he is hitting the absolute mess out of the baseball, usually right at somebody. And so he is still batting below the Mendoza line. But if you go to his baseball savant page, it's not quite fully loaded in yet because he doesn't have the right number of at bats. But man, that thing is red. It,
Yeah.
it looks like he is primed to break out at any point. And I'm here for it. Move him to left field and let him figure it out there. And I think the kid's going to be a superstar. I really do. Um, we talked about this last week. The moment has never seemed too big for him. He steps into the box and he looks comfortable. His fielding could use some work, but that seems to be a more organizational problem than a Roman Anthony problem. Uh, I mean, outside of Marcelo Meyer, has there been a prospect that's graduated recently that you can point to that you feel confident on defense?
No.
No, no.
No.
Um, the only other rookie who looks good is Carlos Narvaez, and he didn't come up through the system.
Well, actually, Rafaela.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That is a very good point. Yes, Rafaela.
But other than him, a hard no.
Yeah, it really I mean, Christian Campbell is making, and it's really not his fault. They've moved him around so much at the big league level that he hasn't had time to really establish himself. But he's making boneheaded errors. Um, Jaron Duran, we've talked about. David Hamilton didn't come up through the system. He was part of the Jackie Bradley Jr. trade. Um, but really, there hasn't been anybody outside of Marcelo and Sadan in recent memory that's not Xander, Mookie, Jackie, because Devers sucked at third. He was never going to be, I mean, he was never going to be a league average third baseman.
For 1
And
year.
so,
Was that
yeah,
2021, I wanna
yeah, that sounds
say?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I think
yeah.
that was just as a whole, the position was
Yeah.
down that year. So league average was iffy. Um, but he wasn't going to do that again, quite obviously. Um, so there's some organizational issues that need to be taken care of at this point. That first game where Roman fielded the grounder in right field and stuck his glove out to the side instead of coming under the ball. And then you get video the next day of Kyle Hudson like showing him how to field grounders. Like what are we doing? Like we're teaching players how to field grounders at Fenway. Like,
Like, with the media there to capture
yeah,
every moment of it.
yeah. It's just it does. It feels like it's an organizational problem and it's something that has to be fixed because you could put a stellar team on the field, but if they can't make the routine plays, if they can't be basic league average defenders, you're never going to win a World Series title.
Well, you mentioned this, I think back when the, Red Sox were playing the Blue Jays,
Hmm.
defense wins games,
Yeah.
and, I mean, it was a joke, but the Blue Jays have a better record than the Red Sox, and they have
Yeah.
pretty solid defense all around the
Mhm.
field. So,
I
yeah,
mean,
the
first
team
base
gets
is a
to
black hole, but
first. Yeah. Well,
for as much as I love Vladimir Guerrero Jr., he is a DH pretending to play first to try to make some of that contract valuable. Um, I'm very curious. Bo Bichette, I think, is gone at the end of this year. And while he's not the all-star that everybody expected him to be, he is a more than capable shortstop. I am very curious to see that team next year because they're going to have some turnover.
and they have money to spend.
It's
They're
just a
kind of
matter
like
of
the
getting somebody to
Giants.
take it.
Yeah, they're kind of like the Giants of the AL, where nobody wants
Yeah,
to sign with them.
yeah. I mean, and I'll say it again. Like I love Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I wish that he had reached free agency so he could have a chance to come to Boston. But he took that contract because he knew, and realistically, his agent knows that one, there's a lockout coming after next season, and two, he wasn't going to get 500 million on the open market because the Blue Jays were so desperate to keep him there that they were always going to meet his asking price, even if they wanted to peacock around and pretend they weren't going to. Um, he could have set it at 6, and I think 6 or 650, and I think that they would have done it.
Hmm.
They are
Yeah,
just so
yeah,
desperate for star
desperate.
power.
Well, I keep seeing rumors of Kyle Schwarber being linked to the Blue Jays.
I have seen that too. I've also seen him linked to the Red Sox.
I would love that reunion.
Yeah, I would too. And I know like you're Philly, like
Yeah.
you have a
Well,
much deeper appreciation for Schwarber than I do, but I loved him on the Red Sox. I thought that that was probably outside of the Willier trade. I think the Willier trade's the best thing that Heim did. But bringing in Schwarber when he was injured from the Nationals, I was incredible.
yeah, that was a one of the few Bloom master classes.
Yeah,
But I mean, I really don't hold that much favoritism towards the Phillies living in, the local area, but Schwarber man is such a good teammate. He's
yeah,
clutch. Um he hit he well, I can't say that. He mashes the ball.
yeah,
Just yeah, I love yeah, it God, did he hit that grand slam in 2021 in the postseason? Was that
yeah,
him?
yeah,
Yeah, just the last time
uh
Red
huh,
Sox fans felt excitement in the postseason.
yeah. It. I would love a reunion with him, even if it's not at the trade deadline. He's a free agent at the end of this year. I would love for them to bring him on um, as a full time DH, which I know Craig is kind of anti full time DH. But I think that when you have a Kyle Schwarber available, um, give him a 3-year deal. I think that
He's
makes a lot of
also
sense.
he's gotten better later in his career, which
Hmm.
bodes well for that type of contract.
Yeah,
And
and I think that when you are a DH only, like look at JD Martinez. It took JD years to figure everything out, but when he did, and he wasn't being forced to run out to left field and sprain his ankle on second base. Uh, JD was the best hitter in baseball. Schwarber can easily be the best hitter in baseball as a DH only.
well, the last Phillies game I went to, it was a Sunday game, and he's been doing this a little bit. He's been playing left field randomly. So,
Interesting.
Breslow, if you're listening to this, he has some
Mhm.
versatility.
We do know that Breslow is a big fan of the Talk Sox podcast. He loves our ideas and runs with them.
So,
But
injury updates.
yeah, so we've talked about Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford. Um, we've talked about Alex Bregman a little bit. It looks like Bregman will be back the beginning of July. He has ramped up baseball activities.
He's
Um,
running.
yeah, and that's really the last hurdle that he had to get to because it was a quad injury. But like I said, Jared Carabas has kind of hinted that they're circling July 7th as his return day. So we might get him for 5-6 games before the All-Star break to kind of ease him back in. It wouldn't shock me to see them rotate him through third base and DH. for at least a couple of weeks and let Marcelo continue to play some third and then shuttle between third and second for a little bit. Unlike Christian Campbell, I think Marcelo can handle that. That doesn't bother
He can
me.
play wherever he
Yeah.
needs to
And
confidently.
he talked to Jemai before the game today. I had a chance to see right before I put my son down. And Jemai was like, "Hey, like there's some, rumblings that you're going to play second." And Marcel was like, "Anywhere in the infield, I'll give it 100%." Cool. Like, love to hear that, especially from the young kids. And I mean, I think that you could put Marcelo at first base, and it's a waste of his glove, but I think that he would excel there. So wherever they want to put him, I think is fine. Bregman coming back really helps settle the lineup. Adds that thumper right-handed bat back into the lineup that they're missing. So July 7th / July 10th can't come quick enough, in my opinion. The last one to really talk about is Jordan Hicks, who came over in the Rafael Devers trade. He has made one rehab appearance for the Woo Sox, and it didn't go super well. And that is really putting it nicely. Jordan Hicks, I think kind of the plan for him is a back end reliever. I do think that they acquired him with maybe an eye towards trading Chapman in hopes that Hicks could be the closer, because he has shown in the past that he could do that. He went 2/3 of an inning, 3 hits, 2 earned, a walk, a strikeout on 23 pitches. Is reporting that he will get one more rehab start before he is called up to the major league club. The velocity was down. His sinker, when he's on, touches 100. I haven't seen the velocity reports. Just from people who are at the game, we're saying that the velocity is down. I don't know if that means like 95, 96, or if we're talking lower than that. If we're talking lower than that, then I think that he probably needs more than one rehab start or more than one more rehab appearance before he makes his debut with the big league club. I do think that under the hood, there are things to like about Jordan Hicks. If you're new to the podcast, I am in Cardinals country. So I watched Jordan Hicks come up. I'm not a Cardinals fan by any stretch of the imagination, but my entire family is, and all of my friends are that live here. And so I hear about a lot of these people. And I think that Jordan Hicks, he's had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. It was all-star caliber starter or all-star caliber closer. He was then traded to the Blue Jays, where he performed very well in 23. Going into 24, he was a free agent with some pedigree, a little bit, not a ton, but a little bit. And it's been reported pretty widely, especially brought back up since the trade, that the Red Sox came in second to the Giants for his services in 24. And the Giants pitched him as, we want to work you out as a starter. We think you can start in this league. I don't know if that's what gave them the edge because the Red Sox maybe wanted him to close. I'm not going to assume. But here we are, and he is now likely a back-end reliever for the Boston Red Sox. In what I think was kind of a way to salary dump him from the Giants to make sure the Giants took on all of Devers' remaining contract. Which, if he turns out to be a usable back end piece, that's fine. If not, what's done is done. You can't really go back on it. But I do think that it was maybe they traded for him with an eye towards, well, if we do trade Chapman, hopefully Hicks can slot into a closer role because as much as I love Justin Slayton, I don't think Justin Slayton can do that this year. And your only other option would be Garrett Whitlock. And while I support Whitlock as a closer, you've got to get the errors under control for Whitlock to be your closer because Whitlock is a pitch to contact guy and not a strike him out guy. And if your closer is pitch to contact and you have David Hamilton at second base, you're not going to win many of those games that he's trying to close. Not that he's on here, but we, like you mentioned earlier, Maddie, we do need to talk about the world traveler that is Masataka Yoshida. If you don't follow him on Instagram, it's the best Instagram account in the world.
His travel photos are
he's a
the
pure
best.
human being. I would love to just like sit and like relax with Masataka Yoshida. I think he is like the most chill guy on the planet.
His clothing too. I mean, he's serving looks off the field.
Yeah.
The GQ photo shoot of him with that fur coat. Okay, Bing, pop off.
Yeah. I feel so bad for him. Just with everything that's gone on last season, this season. He was the best hitter in spring training, and then come the start of the season, he's magically on the IL because, of course, they want him to play the field. And the one position he can play has 3 people in front of him. Like,
I mean, I saw videos of him trying to throw like maybe a month ago. He actually looked pretty injured.
Yeah,
and,
I agree. We talked about that. Those videos of him trying to throw, because the video was like 2 long tosses, and he immediately like pulls his arm back and points at it and calls the trainer out. It's just Cora said, go ahead.
With his swing, the way he ends with the bat in his hand, I mean, that's prone to injury, so might be a mechanics issue. But when he's healthy, he's a good hitter. I mean, he doesn't have power. We've talked about that before, but
but I honestly thought going into this year, it seems like players who come over from Japan, with the most recent example being Seiya Suzuki, like year 3 is when they seem to figure everything out. And so I really thought that if he was getting regular at bats, then we would see that power that we heard about coming over from MPB. And I think maybe we'll see it now if he survives the trade deadline, which I don't think is a guarantee. But Cora came out and said that there would be a platoon effectively at DH with Massa and Rob Refsnyder, which I don't hate. Refsnyder has performed well against lefties and righties this year. So I assume that against left-handed starters, we will see Refsnyder at DH, Willier, I assume, in the outfield, which I think is good. I would like to see Willier get more at-bats against left-handed pitching. Once again, to get Roman Anthony time, I think that means that you have to trade Jarren Duran to open up left field so Roman Anthony can also get at-bats against left-handed pitching. But Cora then said that they were looking at fast-tracking Yoshida's rehab. I feel like we should have started, even with Devers on the team 2 weeks ago. Yoshida probably should have been taking swings 2 weeks ago. I'm curious when he'll be with the big league club. Do you think it'll be by the end of the month? We're 8 days out.
He said, we're looking at Twitter now, starting a rehab assignment next week, maybe 5 games there in Worcester, then see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
At least before the All-Star break.
Yeah, so we're probably looking the first full week of July. Probably. I don't hate that. So really, it'll coincide with Bregman, probably. I bet they both come up around the same time. That 7th to 10th window.
I've thought about this, maybe a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. I wonder if, well, this also goes back to the Breslow press conference. I think that was a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
where the team said they needed a long-term solution at first base, and then all this stuff
That
about
he
Yoshida.
instantly walked back.
Yeah, and I was thinking, well, maybe the Red Sox are trying to mend their rotation with, you know, I mean, I wouldn't call him a big name, no offense. I love him, but a larger Japanese free agent to try to mend that relationship and then
Mm-hmm.
pursue Murakami in the offseason.
I was just about to ask about
Yeah,
that. If you think that it, like, yes, they're trying to mend the relationship with Yoshida with kind of an eye towards Murakami, um,
100%.
come the
Yeah.
winter. Yeah. Do you know, is there any connection between Murakami and Yoshida?
Um, they play. I know they played on separate NPB teams, but I saw a photo that Murakami posted of Yoshida and him, a selfie in the some Japanese stadium clubhouse,
Okay.
or maybe
Okay.
that's the Marlins. That's a U.S. ad. That definitely was at wherever the Marlins play. Huh.
So
So I mean,
during WBC, probably.
yeah, 2023. So
Yeah.
yeah, it looks like they're friends. I think they follow each other on Instagram. I mean, Yoshida
Okay.
doesn't follow that many people, so
Yeah.
there's some type of connection there.
Okay. I would love to see, and that's not what this is about, but I would love to see the Red Sox as legitimate players in the Murakami sweepstakes.
That would be great because I know the Yankees are also tied to him or have been. So I'd
Yeah.
love to see them swipe swipe him.
Yeah. Well, it just came out today that apparently the Yankees are already talking about drafting Anthony Volpe's replacement.
Oh no. God. They're done with him.
Yeah, and that's been pretty quick. Um, but yeah, I would love to see them legitimately in the Murakami sweepstakes because he's not beholden to the same set of rules that Roki Sasaki was, since he's not under 25. Um, so hopefully, fingers crossed, that's a path that they take. I think that Murakami, even if he takes 3 years to kind of figure things out, like treat it like the Cubs did Seiya Suzuki, who I wanted the Red Sox to be all in on Seiya Suzuki. I loved him. I still do. Over the offseason, I was pulling for them to trade for him. Um, but even if it takes 2 or 3 seasons for him to figure it out, like that is the first baseman of the future if he's on your team.
He also can play third too.
Yeah. So a little Alex Bregman insurance.
Yeah. And the Red Sox Japanese scout Kento Matsumoto survived the infamous sportsology audit. So
It's
there
telling.
are resources for them.
Was he the one that was riding the Ferris wheel to scout Masataka
Yeah.
Yoshida? Sweet.
Yeah.
That is one of my favorite stories. I love that so much.
It was really
Um,
heartwarming.
yeah. Like he's just out
Just
in center
riding.
field on a Ferris wheel for hours on end, watching Masataka Yoshida. I love it. Um, so kind of we're talking about free agents. Like the last thing on the rundown we've got here is that we are getting closer to the trade deadline. We are just over a month away. Um, right at kind of 5 weeks. Um, like I said earlier, the Athletic has Jaron Duran as the number one trade target in baseball. Walker Buehler is on that list. Aroldis Chapman is on that list. I don't have it up in front of me. Let me get it pulled back up. Because I think that there's an interesting, the Red Sox are in a very interesting situation. Um, the Sox have scored. It's now 5-4.
Baby steps.
Yeah. Okay, and this is from Tim Britton, Aaron Gleeman, and Eno Saris, which so like I trust them over most other baseball minds. Um, yeah, so leading the list is Jaron Duran. They actually have Freddie Peralta as the number two. trade target in all of baseball, which I think is interesting. The next Red Sox that appears is Wilyer Abreu at 7. And then we've got Chapman at 16. I'm going to scroll back up for a second because I believe that Chapman is the first relief pitcher on this list. Yes. So Chapman is the first relief pitcher on the list, coming in at number 16. We've got Walker Buehler coming in at 19. Old friend Chris Martin comes in at 20. I would not hate that reunion one bit. And that rounds out the top 30 most likely to be traded from the Athletic. I think we've kind of said all that needs to be said about Duran. Out of all of these on this list, I think that he is by far the most likely to be traded. I don't think they're trading Wilyer. I really don't. I don't think they trade both of them at the bare minimum. I think that Duran still gets you a bigger package than Wilyer, and I like Wilyer's upside far more than Duran's. Do you have a take on that?
Yeah. Maybe if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said trade Wilyer over Duran, but now I'm kind of in the keep Wilyer, trade Duran group because, I mean, based on all of, Duran has a long history with the team, but even after last year where he kind of was Cora's favorite, now he's not. And like you said, we talked about this before, but he's moving down in the lineup against lefties, just blowing up during games. Willie doesn't do that.
Yeah. I did think it was hilarious that when Willier was doing his rehab stint in Worcester, and they're like, "Hey, like you're gonna be back with the big league club. Are you excited? Are you gonna play right field?" And he's like, "I'll play right field, DH, third base. I don't care." It's like those were two positions that you were very specific about, Willier.
The whole team kind of shading Rafi after the fallout is interesting.
Yeah, I think that I'm not going to say it's split clubhouse, because there have been some reports. So Craig went around to individual players, kind of held like open office, like, "Hey, come talk to me if you want to talk about the Devers deal." And I really don't want to get into a ton of Devers talk on this episode. I feel like that's kind of beating a dead horse. But for those of people who may not be in the know, Breslow did hold kind of open office hours, and it has come out that there are some players that were like, "Hey, I don't understand this at all. He is like the best dude he's the best hitter on this team. How can you say that we're going to be better when he's not here?" And so I think that that's interesting, but I think that Devers had I won't say enemies in the clubhouse, because I think that Devers just existed in the clubhouse. I don't think that people really liked him or disliked him, which is kind of the worst spot to be in. Like, if people are just indifferent, then it's like, man, whatever. But it seems like there was a contingent of people who are happy that Devers is gone. One of them, I think, is Jarren Duran. Based on they told us that he was traded, and I took a nap for the next 6 hours, and he's one of 26. And, Crochet kind of echoed those same sentiments. But like you said, like, I think like it's very telling that you have multiple people on the team are coming out and like, "Hey, like, whatever the team tells me to do, I'm going to do. I want to win. I want to compete for a World Series. And if that means I need to learn a new position, I'll learn a new position." I love that. I do. I think that that's great. I think it's great that it's coming from the young players, and it's not coming from, because realistically, I think that we could have a very similar conversation about Trevor Story, who it hasn't come out that he's refused to move off short. But when they asked him about possibly moving, the media asked about possibly moving to first, it was a very like, "We haven't even considered it." Like, Is that true, or has it been considered and you've pushed back on it? Because it hasn't come out from anywhere else, but I thought that made a lot of sense, was to move Story to first when Casas went down. And so for him to immediately dismiss it, it sounds like maybe there was something to it. So if we're going to talk about veteran players who are refusing to move positions for the greater good of the team, if that is also Trevor's Story, then get him out of here too. I know that you're gonna trade him for a bucket of balls, but
if you're lucky,
yeah. And if you throw those balls low and outside, he's going to swing at all of them. But I mean, if he has that same mentality that he's not going to move off shortstop, he doesn't need to be in that clubhouse. He doesn't need to be around all these young kids. And I said that with Devers too. But for the kids to be like, yeah, I'll play anywhere, man. You tell me where to go, AC, and I'll be there. I love it. I think it's great. I do think that positional versatility puts us in an interesting spot going into the trade deadline, because kind of standard thought process is you either need to be buyers or you need to be sellers. And I think that this team is going to have to do a little of both to make the playoffs. They can go all in. Going all in, you're not trading Chapman for sure. But I think that probably Duran, take or leave. I think that Buehler needs to be gone. You can find upgrades for both of those positions pretty easily within the system. But I think if they thread the needle, and this is what kind of bit Heim in the butt, was he tried to thread that needle of buying and selling every trade deadline, and it never worked. But I think if Craig can thread that needle and bring in a Sean Murphy, who we know they were already interested in with the Devers deal, if you can work a deal for Sean Murphy with, if you don't know, Chris Sale has a fractured rib because he dove for a ball, because that's things that Chris Sale, masterful bike rider, should be doing, is diving for balls on the infield. The Braves realistically probably just had their last chance at the postseason snuffed out with that injury. The NL is too loaded. They're not going to win the East. They might play for the third wild card spot, but realistically, that's going to be, you're going to have the Dodgers that will probably win the NL West, and 2 of the 3 wild card spots are going to go to the Padres and the Giants. And then the other wild card spot is probably going to go to one of the Mets or the Phillies. So the Braves realistically probably aren't looking at a playoff run this year. And if the Red Sox are interested in Sean Murphy, does Garcia, the password, get them Sean Murphy? Probably. Does a package of Jarren Duran, the password, and somebody else get them Sean Murphy and insert Brave starter? Probably. That's not Chris Sale. We've seen that floated from a couple different places. I think that would be hilarious. And I think that would be Craig Breslow just like telling the fan base that he does not care what they think about him, and he's just going to do what he wants to do and what he feels is best for the team. But I think that the Red Sox need to thread that needle. They need to buy players like Sean Murphy, players like Kyle Schwarber, on this list. If you're serious about contending, try to upgrade Walker Buehler into Zach Gallen, something like that, because the Diamondbacks are kind of in that free fall area too. Eugenio Suarez is a name that's on there. Not that you need a third baseman, but you've got some pieces that are floating around that if you can buy the pieces that you need to contend this year while not selling the farm, while not trading Chapman, while not trading Willier, not that he's on that list, but guys like Bayo or even Houck, if you can thread that needle, you can buy and you can sell from your farm system, which we've talked about this episode, is thin. But if Harrison's going to be what he's going to be, that opens up a lot of pitching depth that you can trade from. yeah, buy and sell. Bring in the pieces that make you a contender this year. A guy like Sean Murphy, you could, instead of Carlos Narvaez playing 98% of games, you could have him do 75 or 60% of games and have Murphy do 25, 40%, something like that. And give Narvaez a break so he's feeling better come postseason. And then you have Sean Murphy, who is playoff proven. You know that it's not a huge drop or a drop period in offensive production from Narvaez, whereas Connor Wong still does not have an RBI. And we are at the end of June. It's almost impressive. You've got to DFA him, right?
I kind of like him. I kind of like to see him
make it to July. He hit the sack fly that made it 5-4. Connor Wong has an RBI.
Yay!
Now, I will tell you this. It is currently bases loaded in the bottom of the fourth.
Again?
Yep. Who's on the mound? Walker Buehler.
Still?
Yep.
Hello.
Sorry about that. I was right by my microphone, so that was really loud. Sorry. But I don't know. What do you think? What do you think the Red Sox are going to do when it comes to the trade deadline, based on what we currently know? A lot can change in 5 weeks, but
I think the Red Sox are going to do whatever makes the team perfectly aligned. Not to steal that word from last week's presser, but
do we have an over-under for how many times that word was said?
Somebody has. I bet somebody counted it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Has to be.
But I'd like to see a solution at first base. The Brewers are on a hot streak right now. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They just lost to the Pirates, though, tonight. But I don't think they're getting rid of Rhys Hoskins. But interestingly, they brought in Andrew Vaughn sometime 2 weeks ago.
That was the Aaron Savale trade.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you ask for a trade and then they send you to the White Sox.
Could be worse. The Rockies?
Yeah, he could go to the Rockies. I thought that was very interesting, and I think that does make Rhys Hoskins kind of expendable. Not that Andrew Vaughn has had a terrible season, but he was the 3rd overall pick in 2020, I think. I would make the phone call to ask what the price for Rhys Hoskins was. It's an expiring contract, so it shouldn't be anything too crazy. If it involves the words Walker Buehler at all, do it. See if they'll give you Quinn Priester back.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding. While I was excited about bringing in Quinn Priester straight up for Nick York last year, it was mostly because York was just blocked everywhere. And York is still in the Pirates AAA system. I think he broke camp with the big league club, and he has been optioned back down pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. So, turning York into Priester and then Priester into this, I forget his name off the top of my head, but this outfielder that they've got who's at Greenville right now, I think. But he looks promising. And I think, once again, could be another person that you could trade. I think, what's his name that they got back that's in AA from the Giants?
Tibbs the third.
Yes, Tibbs the third. That gets on my nerves. And he's just got the 3 on the back of his jersey too. I hope that they trade him. That's what I hope he was brought in for, was to be traded in a package for somebody else. Kyle Harrison is the gem of that deal. If he pans out, the Red Sox will look smart for this. But I think it's going to be interesting. And like I said, a lot can change in 5 weeks. If Walker Buehler continues to allow 5 runs in the first inning from here on out, then we could have a long 5 weeks.
Well,
but I don't know.
Speaking of starting pitching, I've been beating this drum for a while now.
Uh-huh.
The Phillies have an excess amount of starting pitching,
Yep.
and Ranger Suarez is on an expiring contract. So
Uh-huh.
I would love to see some type of trade for him and then lock him up, whether it's Jarren Duran, Wilyer Abreu, couple of outfield prospects, including the password, make it happen.
So there's a name in Philly that I think is gettable for Jarren Duran.
McAble?
Yes.
He just got shelled versus the Mets, I think. Yeah.
3 innings, 4 earned, 1 strikeout. But man, the intangibles I like a lot. And if Bailey has figured out how to approach pitchers the correct way in the system, I think Duran and not even another top 20 prospect can probably land you McAble. Or if you want to swing for the fences and try to bring in Ranger and Mick, I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility. Now, that's a much larger package going back. You're likely looking at a Dobbins, Fitz, somebody, an MLB caliber pitcher headed back their way. But I like McAble a lot.
I do too. He's a good pitcher.
Yeah. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see kind of where we go from here. Like I said, we've got 5 weeks left.
A lot can happen.
Yeah, the Red Sox have to win series between now and then. They won 4 series in a row. It was great. Realistically, the sole reason they didn't sweep the Giants was because of the defense. It looks like, at least in game 1 of the Angels series, that pitching is going to be a problem. Starting pitching for Walker Buehler. Does that mean Crochet's on the mound tomorrow?
Right.
I think. It's either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Crochet.
Yeah, Crochet.
Yeah,
okay.
Tuesday, Crochet.
Okay. And then Fitz, I guess, is scheduled for Wednesday.
Yeah.
Okay. Then off on Thursday, come back to Boston for the Jays. The Crochet start will be fine. I'll hold out hope that Fitz looks better than his 1 3-inning start that he had a few weeks ago, and he hasn't looked great in Worcester, but maybe that was just knocking the rust off, and he's going to be fine. But yeah, there's a lot that could happen in these next 5 weeks, and the Red Sox have to get back to winning series to be able to thread that needle. If not, yeah, I think Chapman is traded. I think Buehler is gone. Duran is gone. Justin Wilson is gone. Anybody on an expiring contract is traded. I think that if that's the case, I think you can get a lot back for Aroldis Chapman. When it comes to the All-Star game, if the AL is up, Chapman will be the one who is coming in the 9th to close the game out. There's not a better closer in the AL than Aroldis Chapman. And so I think that you will see, if the Red Sox take a nosedive, I think you'll see him shipped out to an NL team. I'm not gonna say that you'll get like Seth Lugo back like the Royals did, or was that Cole Reagans? It was Cole Reagans. You're not going to get a Cole Reagans back like the Royals did when they trade him to the Rangers, but I think that you'll get something good, and it'll probably be somebody with quite a few years of control. And if you're out of it come the end of July, then yeah, ship them all. Justin Wilson will command a pretty decent return for a middle of the rotation arm. Chapman will command a large return. Duran will command a pretty large return. Walker Buehler, yeah, cash considerations, international bonus pool money, whatever you need to do to get him off this team. But I don't know. I'm sure it's a topic that we'll talk about probably every episode as we approach the trade deadline.
Yeah, the thing is, right before the trade deadline, they play the Cubs immediately after the All-Star break, the Phillies, the Dodgers, and then the Twins. So, but at the beginning of the month, they're playing the Reds, Nationals, Rockies, and Rays. It could go either way.
Theoretically, those should be 4 series wins heading into the trade deadline. They should win this Angels series too. And realistically, they should win the Blue Jays series. Because I think on paper, the Red Sox have a better team than the Toronto Blue Jays. But Toronto always plays well against the Red Sox, especially at Fenway. And so I'm not going to count that as a series win. But even if you lose today, I think that Crochet will be fine. And I think that I think Crochet will be great. And I think that Fitz will be fine. But those 4 series heading into the trade deadline, or into the All-Star break, I don't think there's any reason why you should realistically lose more than 2 or 3 games in that stretch. The Cubs will be tough coming out of the All-Star break. But last year, when the best stretch that the Red Sox had was against the Yankees and Phillies back to back. If Bryce Harper is still hurt, if the Phillies are approaching sell territory, you might be leaving Philadelphia with some players who just walked across the field, a la Christian Vasquez in Houston a couple years ago.
Well, the Phillies have a 35-52 all-time record against the Red Sox. Yeah. So, I mean, I expect a series win there.
Yeah. I realistically, I think heading into the trade deadline, you're in probably the 3rd wild card spot, potentially in 2nd or 3rd for the division, especially if the Yankees keep sliding. There's no reason, as it stands right now, trying to project ahead, that the Red Sox should not be threading that buy-sell needle to go all in to compete this year and next year. I think the front office believes that they are a playoff team this year, but I also think that the front office believes that the window fully opens next year in 26. And I think that they expect that window to be open for quite some time. So if you can get pieces this year that are controllable, or that maybe they are expiring contracts, but you're confident in re-signing them and extending them, do it, and do it quickly. Don't give them a reason to reach free agency. So we'll see. Do you have anything that you're working on right now, Maddie? I know you're headed out on vacation here soon. So
I do not at the moment. Do you?
I do. I've got a couple of pieces. I just had the piece about Noah Song go up earlier today, recording day, Monday, the 23rd. And then I'm finishing up a piece on the Athletics trade list, their top 30 trade list. Once again, headlined by Jarren Duran. And then it kind of splinters off into like we got to do something with Duran, and we got to do something now, because the longer we wait, the worse the return's going to be. And then I am working on a piece about Connor Wong's historically bad start or just season. And I'll need to update it now that he has 1 RBI on the season. Yeah, good job, Connor. I think you're probably going to get DFA'd come trade deadline time, unless there's somebody who's willing to take you on. But those are the 2 things I've got cooking right now. I'm sure I'll have some more as the week progresses. I'm a teacher, so I'm just kind of sitting around at home right now. We're out of school, so I like to write. So here we are. But yeah, so be on the lookout for those. They should post some point this week. And go Sox. It's still currently 5-4 in the bottom of the 5th, and Guerrero is now on the mound. So Walker Buehler made it 4 innings tonight, giving up 5 runs in the first. So get him off this team. But thanks for listening. Please subscribe wherever you're listening at. If you're on the Talk Sox website, go ahead, leave a comment, even though I think Maddie's right. And when I say that, people don't do it at some form of protest. But leave a comment, interact with us. We love talking to you guys, and we will catch you later. Have a good one. Thanks for listening to the Talk Sox podcast.